This summer I went out and did some research on some animal traps to try and catch little mice, chipmunks, and squirrels mainly. Although I've caught everything from birds to snakes to a possum in one of my traps. But I did some research on some different traps from YouTube, and I appreciated everybody else's input, so I thought I would give back a little bit. I purchased 4 different traps, and I'm going to try and keep this very brief. The first one is a 2-door trap. It's a very small one. It's the small size they have. It's for little mice. It's made by Havahart. The pros and cons on each. Okay, the pros. First of all, it's made out of good quality metal, and that's about it. It works too. They do come in. The cons to it is you do have to play with it a bit. There's a perfect balance on the trigger, so when it's raining outside or it's cold or it's dark, it's kind of a little difficult, especially when you're wearing gloves, because I like to be somewhat sanitary. I know that these little rodents carry diseases, so I wear gloves, and trying to set the trap while wearing gloves is a little on the difficult side. Plus then you have to play with this little lever and this little lever and make sure that they're down when you're setting it and they're back up when you're, or else it's not going to trap anything. They'll be trapped inside, but if you don't have the bars set just right, it's not going to lock the door. So it's got its pros and cons. It's made out of good quality metal. It does work if you're patient enough to play with the trigger and other mechanisms. The second one I'll do a review on is on the Atomic Barbie. I may not have all the proper model numbers, but I love this thing. It's only about 20, maybe 22 bucks, 23 bucks on Amazon. It works really well. It has a hair trigger in there. I've caught, again, the smallest of mice. They will not get out of this little squared graph paper type grate. It's not the highest quality metal, is one of the cons. But let me go through the pros first. The pros really are that it works very well. It trips very easily. It trips extremely fast. You get the smallest and the fastest of rodents that go in there. As soon as they trip that plate, they try and get out, and there's no way they're getting out. That door will slam shut really quickly and trap them in there. So it works. The cons, number one, is the construction. It's not made out of high durable quality metal. As you can see, the door is a little on the lopsided side right now, as of having used this all summer. I haven't dropped it per se, but just from the constant use and abuse from the animals being in there trying to get out and everything else, it kind of deforms after a little bit of time. It's not high quality metal. The other thing is, if you have anything in the front, like weeds of any kind, when the door shuts, it will trap the weeds in there, and it'll keep the door open just enough for some small rodents to still be able to escape, including chipmunks, even some of the larger chipmunks. The concept is the door shuts, this metal bar here falls down, but if the door doesn't shut, if there's not a perfect seal, then this lever will not go all the way down. And if it doesn't go all the way down to the ground, it's not going to lock that animal in there. And I've gone out to a local hardware store and I've picked up some of these wooden shims. And as soon as I catch a rodent in the cage, I have to run out to the cage before he gets his wits about him, and I have to slide this through here with the door shut, of course, but slide it through and all the way to the other end to make sure that that rodent is not getting out. And that's one of the main negatives, is the quality of the metal, not that great. The seal, not that great. You do have to test it to make sure the seal is going to be good before you decide to use the trap, before you set the trap. And also make sure that there's nothing underneath the trip plate, such as peanuts or little grains of corn or anything, because you could have an animal come in here and do the jig on that trip plate, and it won't trip if there's a peanut that's caught underneath there, so you have to be extra careful with that. So those are the pros and cons on the Havahart. Love it though, absolutely love it. It works great. The other, that's not a Havahart, I'm sorry, the Atomic Barbie. The Havahart here, I thought the handle might be a gimmick. This is the automatic easy set, but actually it's one of my favorite traps. If I were to buy another one now, it would be this one. It's a great trap. It's very easy to set. It's very easy to trap an animal. These are some of the cons, and it's very easy to release the animal. You just pull the handle back and they take off. So what are the cons on this one? Well, first of all, it's very sturdy. It's not like the Atomic Barbie. It has very sturdy metal. There's no animal that's going to chew its way through this thing. When it's trapped, and I don't have to run out and grab a wooden shim to keep the door shut on this thing. I know that the animal's stuck in there, and he is permanently stuck unless I let him out. There's only two cons really that I can think of. One of them is that handle that goes back to set the trap. It's not that sensitive. The trip plate's not that sensitive, and so what I had to do is I had to add duct tape. You can see, and there's probably a good 6, 7, 8 layers of duct tape underneath the handle. And what that does is it makes it more sensitive. So when the animal steps on the trip plate, it's going to slam the door shut a little bit quicker. The difficult part of that is it also makes it a little more difficult to set it, because when you pull it back and you put it into its place on top of the duct tape, sometimes it doesn't stay. It'll automatically trip because it's so sensitive, and I have to almost slam it down sometimes to get it to actually set. But once it's set, it's good, it's sensitive, and it's ready to go. You'll see one other modification I made to it. I took some of the favorite nuts that I found the squirrels seem to like peanuts and black walnuts, drilled a hole through them, put a piece of wire through them, and I actually placed it right above and just behind the trip plate. So the animals will come up to it and they'll reach for it, and when they reach for it, they'll step even heavier on that trip plate and trap themselves inside. The last one I'll do a review on is one that I really don't care about that much, but it works. It's the Squirrelinator, and it's supposed to trap, according to the outside of the box, up to 25 squirrels in hours. Well, okay, here's the thing. Here's the pros and the cons on it. Let me give you the pros first before the cons. The pros are, I like the concept. Squirrel comes into here, walks in, no trip plate, and once he walks in, the door shuts, and that's it. He's in. So there's an ease there. You don't have to set the trap. You can just lay it down. You throw the food, as you can tell, just on the ground. There's nothing you have to be concerned about to make sure that there's no food underneath the trip plate. The animal's just going to walk in, and he's not going to be able to find his way out. Now, that being said, and plus also the construction of it is sturdy. It's solid. The cons about it: number one, there's a door here that will shut and cover the opening, and it's used for transport, and it has little J clips so that you can clip it here so that you can clip this door shut on both sides. And then there's also a door on top where you can put the food inside, and you have to make sure that these things are secured. So you have to remember that when you want an animal to go in, you've got these doors open so that they can go in. And when you're transporting them, you want to move this over so you can seal them shut. And you also want to make sure these are sealed shut so that when an animal goes in, he doesn't just pop out. I would say another con is that when you're trying to let the animals out once you catch them, if you're doing that and transporting them elsewhere and letting them go, the downside is you have to tip this thing practically upside down in order for that to happen. And there's one other con that I'll mention that I found with this one, and that is that there was once when I found a squirrel in here. I saw him in here, and I figured I'd let him go for another 4 hours or so, hoping there'd be 2 or 3 or 4 when I came back. There were none. He broke out. I don't know how. I don't know if he made a phone call and got his friends to come over and let him out. I don't know. But I came back, and he was absolutely gone. I don't know if he kind of weaseled himself out, noticed this thing rattled a bit, and just kind of weaseled himself out underneath, but somehow he got out. So I don't trust it. Once I catch one, I will come out immediately, shut these doors, to lock them in there, and I will transport them. So I don't trust it as a multi-catch unit, but as a single catch only. I just caught another one this morning, and I just took them and I transported them. So that's one of the other cons with it. That's the Squirrelinator. All of these items you can get on Amazon.com for relatively inexpensive price. I would say the Squirrelinator was the most expensive. That was, I think, $45 or something like that. The auto set Havahart I think was $33, and I love it. The little atomic Barbie I think was only $23. It's for smaller rodents. One other thing I'll say about this larger one here, I was hoping to be able to catch squirrels and hamsters with this. I can't. Squirrels, yes. Hamsters, too small. And even though, you take a look at these size, I mean the size of these holes, they're small. They're like a ½ inch at most, less than a ½ inch. But I'll tell you, once you catch a chipmunk, it will find its way out of here. It'll weasel itself pretty easily out. So this is really only for larger animals. This one here is really only for smaller animals, because the squirrels will not go into that little atomic Barbie unless it's a baby squirrel. So those are some pros and cons on 4 different traps. Hopefully this was helpful.